By the way, I watched your YouTube videos. Your most popular YouTube video, and that was fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. You talk with Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
your cousin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you ask her a lot of questions. But this time, I want you to, talk about yourself.
I thought about that too. I was like, I just realized watching it. I was like, I basically had her talking the whole time, but I didn't really, yeah, give my opinions or talk about my experience that much. So maybe I should do that.
Yeah. So could you talk about your experience in Japan this time? So can I ask you a lot of questions? Actually, I prepared a lot of questions. So
Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk about yourself. I think a lot of people are interested in you because, the number of my subscribers has been increasing and some of them are interested in you right now. So I think
Thank
it'd
you.
be fun to talk about yourself. And I think it'll be fun to, put the link of your YouTube channel to my what's it called, like description
Description?
or
Yep, in
yeah
the
in the
description
comment.
or
Yeah,
comments. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that would be cool. Let's do that.
yeah, of course. So yeah, let me ask you some questions. So
Mm-hmm.
number one, so what brought you to Japan?
Well, so I had always wanted to visit Japan. Like ever since I was a kid, I got interested in like Godzilla and Pokemon and then like Dragon Ball, and then I kind of learned more about the culture and the natural scenery, and I always just thought that it looked like a very beautiful country. So in the year 2017, I think it was, I was with a dance company
Hmm?
and we got a grant from like the government or some artistic foundation or whatever to go take a trip to India for like a collaboration performance or something. But at that time, the artistic director decided that she was only going to take one dancer, and it wasn't me. So, um, but the thing was is that she didn't tell us that at first though. She just told us that we got a grant, like all this money to go take a trip to India. So we all thought that we were all going to India,
Hmm?
and then it just ended up being one. So then I just was like kind of bitter about that,
Hmm?
and I decided to go take my own trip to Japan instead
Hmm?
while they were in India. So yeah, so I visited Japan, and then while I was visiting Japan, I thought it might be cool to live here,
Hmm?
and then I kind of started looking up like auditions or things that I could do because at that time I was, dancing. At that time I couldn't speak or type or write Japanese or read Japanese that well. Like I could do a little bit, but not much. So I didn't find very much.
Hmm?
And then instead of dancing though, I also thought like I've heard of ninja performers.
Hmm?
So so then I tried searching for ninja auditions, and then I discovered Hattori Hanzo Ninja Tai. Hattori Hanzo and the Ninjas is how we would say that in
Okay.
English. And yeah, I realized I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I kind of want to be a part of that group. But that year, their audition, like their application submission, had already passed, so I couldn't do it right then and there. But so I went back to the US and studied my Japanese, and then later on, like in 2018, I moved to Japan and studied at language school for six
Hmm?
months. And then after graduating from language school, I auditioned for the ninja team, and then I passed.
Hmm?
So originally, to summarize all of that, that was a long story, but to summarize all of that, in the first place, I just wanted to visit Japan because it was always a beautiful country I thought that I was most interested in. And then after visiting, I really wanted to move there and become a ninja. so, so,
Ninja.
so I did. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I think, in most cases, people who live in Japan become an English teacher, but in your case, you're different because,
Hmm.
you took an audition and you became a dance performer, right?
Right. Yeah. Like dance and choreography, action, like stage combat, a variety
Ah,
of things. But yeah.
I think that's cool. I think
Mm.
you're, different from other like English teachers. I'm not criticizing English teachers. I think
Right.
English teachers are good, but I think you are different. So you're unique. You're cool.
Thank you.
You're special. Yeah. Okay.
I like to think so.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, thank you so much for talking about your experience. But I want to ask you more questions. So let's
Hmm.
move on.
Hmm.
Okay, so did you experience any culture shock in Japan?
Yes. It never, I guess I am a pretty laid back person, and I don't get bothered by things very easily. So I guess there aren't a lot of things that were like super shocking, like that I was like, oh my gosh, like, and that it was like hard for me to deal with. But there were surprising things. Maybe I've talked about this before, but just like in the US with our friends and family, the people we know, we are very like physical, like we hug each other, we give each other high fives and handshakes and but even yeah, and even if you just met someone, like there have been times where like, oh, I just met my cousin's girlfriend for the first time at like a family party, but like we get along and everyone's super nice, and so we hug each other, even though it was like literally the first time we've met, as we're like saying goodbye, basically. But in Japan, it's very much not like that. Like people don't
Right.
touch each other very much.
Mhm.
But then the irony is that in the US with strangers, I think we like to have our space. So like when we get on a train, we like to have our space. When I was living in Chicago, sometimes there would be like a Chicago Cubs game, the baseball team in Chicago, and the train would come by and like the doors would open up and the train was like already pretty full of people. And so a lot of people would just like look at that and they'd be like, no, like I'll just wait for the next train, they didn't want to get on. Whereas in Japan, people are very comfortable just packing onto the train, even though it's all these people they don't know. And like I remember when I was in Tokyo, you would literally see people like back into the train and like grab the inside of the doorway and
Uh,
like shove themselves in, you know what I mean?
yeah, that's crazy.
So that was like a very surprising thing, just thinking about that, how like Japanese people don't really even hug their friends and family. Like some people I think don't even hug their parents once they become adults, right? And yet they're willing to just like go sandwich themselves in between like all these other strangers on the train, like just to the point of like not being able to like move barely. So I thought that was very interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
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 that's funny. Yeah, like you said, physical contact is not common here in Japan, but packed trains are very common, and people are like packed in like sardines.
exactly. Packed in like sardines.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
this is an expression that you taught me before, so
Right.
I used it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. So I guess in that regard, it was a little bit hard for me to deal with just because I felt very lonely physically. um, because like I said, here in the US, we all hug and
mhm,
like high five and touch each other. And then especially for me as a dancer,
mhm,
dancers are often very physical too. So like we're usually moving with each other and like touching each other and like hugging
mhm.
each other and like all this other stuff. And then suddenly I was in Japan and I didn't really have very many like friends or family and I didn't really have anyone to hug or anything. So I
Mhm.
just felt like really lonely. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so I guess that was kind of a culture. I mean, it wasn't like shocking per se because I kind of knew I had
Mm,
heard about that and I kind of
mhm.
knew that it was going to be that way, but it was a cultural difference that was a little bit
Right.
challenging for me. Yeah.
So did you have like your foreign friends in Japan? How about foreign friends in Japan?
Yes, yeah, I think so. And
Mm,
every once in a while I would hug like my Japanese coworkers too, my ninja
mhm,
teammates. I think they were totally cool with it, especially once we got to know each other and they,
mhm,
knew that it was part of my culture. So,
mhm.
they were kind enough to hug me sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, yeah.
Nice.
But
Here, I
even,
think you
oh, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead. Nothing.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, even to add a little bit extra detail, like here in the US, it's even, I mean, and granted for me, I'm in the dance world again, so people are probably more physical in the dance world, but for me, it's very common for me to like even hug like my bosses at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like my
Mm-hmm.
bosses at work have given me hugs and stuff.
Mm.
But like in Japan, when it came to like my bosses or anything, like I would never hug my
Mm.
boss in Japan, like that.
It's not common here.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if I work for a company, I would never hug, my bosses or coworkers.
Right.
I would never do that.
Right, yeah, it seems like that would never happen. Especially not the boss, right? I mean, I guess yeah, probably for you, not your coworkers either. For me though, it was like I could get away with it with my coworkers, but
Mhm.
I couldn't even imagine hugging my boss in Japan.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, let's move on to the next one. So,
Okay.
what are some things you really liked about living in Japan?
The natural scenery, the nature,
Mm,
like the mountains
mm,
and the rivers and the ocean, the temples and gardens, like the
mm,
shrines and temples.
mhm,
And then of course the culture for me, I'm biased because I have always loved ninjas growing up and I went there to become a ninja, but that aspect of like that sort of history and culture with like ninjas and samurai and things like I don't know, like I'm gonna talk about Naruto for a moment, but just like watching Naruto, you could see how aspects of like Japanese legend and like ancient religions and myth and lore were kind of mixed into the story of that. Like the nine-tailed
mm,
fox and the Susanoo and like
mm,
the
mhm.
blade of crap, what's the word I'm looking up for?
Blade?
Kusanagi. Yeah, like the blade of Kusanagi. Like things I don't know, but just lots of things like Japan has this very interesting history and lore and like
Mm,
ancient religions and then mythology and like all of these
mhm,
things. So those were great. The food was delicious and compared to the US, I think relatively healthy, just generally speaking. Obviously,
mm,
there are a lot of unhealthy things in Japan as well, but
mhm,
generally speaking, I feel like it's a little bit healthier and yet still delicious. The people, of course, the culture and the people were very nice. Like I felt like people were always very kind and polite and they always wanted to help me in whatever way possible,
mhm,
which I loved. And, it's also a little bit more, well, generally speaking, quite a bit more indirect
mm,
than
mhm,
US culture, which I think sometimes that was nice and sometimes that was not nice, depending on
mhm,
the situation. But
mhm.
overall, I think it always came from a place of like culture and usually a place of kindness. Like I think people were, yeah, very kind and willing to help out with things whenever I needed help. So
Mm, mhm.
yeah. So lots of things that I liked about Japan.
Oh, okay. You say that people are kind. I think you're kind and polite, so I think people just return the favor.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I think you are a good person. You're great. You have a great personality. So I can imagine that people would have treated you in a nice way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I do feel like, and my coworkers told me this, that they said that my personality seemed a little bit Japanese.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
Kind of. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that that makes sense. And it's funny because I felt like one of my coworkers
Mm-hmm.
in particular, his personality was almost kind of American. So
Mm,
he and I got along really well because I felt like he was like a Japanese person who had somewhat of an American personality, and I was an American person who had somewhat of a Japanese personality. So I
mm.
felt like we got together, or we got along together really well. But yeah.
I think, your personality is like friendly, reserved, and I think you like I wanna say 配慮がある, 気遣いができる. You're considerate. You're considerate.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think so.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I tried to be. Try to be.
yeah, I think so. And you talked about like shrines, temples. So did you go to a lot of these places when you were in Japan?
Yeah, I did. Especially when I was just being a tourist.
Mm,
But I guess just a lot of the most famous ones come to mind, like Kinkakuji and like
mm,
Kiyomizu-dera and
mhm,
Fushimi Inari, I think is what it's
mm,
called.
mhm,
Yeah, that one was like my favorite, probably Fushimi Inari. But then also ones in like Tokyo or Kamakura, or like Atsuta Jingu,
mm.
in like Nagoya and stuff. But yeah.
Okay, cool. I went to Kyoto and Kamakura and Tokyo, but I've never been to Nagoya.
Yeah, it's a nice city. Nagoya Castle's really nice, and there are samurai and ninja there, so that's great.
Oh, okay. Samurai at Nagoya Castle. Cool. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's move on. Okay. So, one moment, please. What are some of your favorites? I mean, okay, one moment, please. What's your favorite Japanese food?
That's hard, but I think I would have to say eel in general, unagi.
Mm-hmm. Eel.
Yeah. Specifically in Nagoya, we had hitsumabushi, which was just
Ah,
like
okay.
a special way it was served and prepared. But just I think unagi in general is probably my
Ooh,
favorite.
cool. Yeah, I agree. Eels are very tasty. Hitsumabushi I think I've never eaten hitsumabushi before for some reason, even though I'm a Japanese. So
Right.
did you like eat eels often when you were in Nagoya?
I can't say that I've had it often per se because it's expensive and
Yeah, right.
it's not something that I would just eat on a regular basis. But,
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, for work and like for TV interviews and stuff, I think I ate hitsumabushi on camera. Like,
On camera.
yeah, like
Mm,
at least 2 or 3 times. I
okay.
think I ate it on camera at least 2 or 3 times. And then, and then I remember one of my last meals in Nagoya before I moved back to the US, my friend and I went out to eat eel together at a
Nice.
restaurant. So, so I've had eel at least. And then sometimes, like I think I bought it at a supermarket once. That's not quite the same when you just buy it at the supermarket or have it like at a sushi, like
Mm,
Sushiro or something like that. It's not quite the
mhm,
same, but it's still good. But
mm,
so I didn't have it like a ton, but I had it enough times to know that I love it.
mhm. Oh, cool. Actually, the other day I went to like what's it called? I don't know the name of the restaurant or anything, but my family and I went out and we ate unagi there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first time I ate like a genuine, like authentic unagi. So it was really tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm 28 and I ate like the real unagi for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but I want to eat hitsumabushi in Nagoya because I
yeah,
think that's definitely good.
yeah. It is. It's very good.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So let's
Mm-hmm.
move on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Is there anything you didn't like about living in Japan?
I think kind of just what I was talking about earlier, just like
Mm,
not having as much like physical closeness
mm,
with people, like not being able to have, hugs and stuff. And
mm,
then I guess one other thing, this seems silly, but this just bothered me so much, was that here in the US, when you go to like a food or like just anything in general, when you're buying anything in general,
mm,
if you buy it in bulk, like if you buy it in larger
mm,
quantity,
mm, mm.
the relative price goes down, like the ratio,
Ah,
the
mhm.
proportionally, right? So
Okay.
if I buy like 100 grams of something versus
Mhm,
200 grams of something, it's going to cost less money per gram if I buy 200 grams here in the US. But
mhm.
in Japan, that just didn't seem to be a thing. Like it was just
Ah,
that always just bothered me so much because I'd be like, I can buy 100 grams of pasta for 100 yen, or I can buy 200 grams of pasta for 200 yen.
I think
I'm like, what's the
I,
difference? I might have, like, it's sometimes, every once in a while, it would even be more expensive. Like, it would be like 100 grams for 100 yen, 200 grams for 205 yen. And I'd be like,
uh,
what? Like, what? I don't know. It's something silly and small, but that like bothered me. Yeah.
I think it depends. Sometimes I can get like a cheaper thing. So I think it depends on the product or
Mm,
it depends on the,
right.
store.
I think sometimes I think I noticed that maybe for like services, like I don't know, like if you could buy like a 10-time massage ticket or something. I felt
Mhm.
like with like services like that, it would be cheaper. Like
Right.
services or like a dance class or things like that. But in my experience with physical goods, like
Mm.
things that you purchase,
Okay.
I don't think it was very rare that I would actually see that. Like it would always just be pretty much the same price, or sometimes, like I said, it would be even worse to buy it in higher quantity.
Okay.
But yeah,
Maybe some of them are the same price or a little cheaper, in my opinion.
right.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I think, like you said, probably they're almost the same price.
right.
But I think in the US you can get something at a lower price, right?
Yeah, and it's like a significant difference when you buy it in
A
bulk,
significant
usually.
difference.
Yeah, it's usually like significantly cheaper
Mm,
per pound or per gram or whatever. But yeah,
okay.
anyways, it looks like we're running out of time.
Yeah. Next time, let's continue this topic because there's more questions. Yeah,
Awesome.
but it was
Sounds
fun.
good. I'll
Yeah,
see
thank
you
you so
in
much.
2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you,
Cheers.
Taku.
Thank
Take
you. Have a good
care.
one.
You too.
現在、英語コーチング、英語ティーチングの生徒さんを募集しています。英語力が伸び悩んでいる、TOEIC の点数が頭打ちしている、継続することが難しい、このような方は無料カウンセリングへどうぞ。下の概要欄のリンクから申し込むことができます。ぜひ無料カウンセリングでお会いしましょう。